The cold blue lights of the science vessel flickered as Jack walked down the narrow hallway. He was just a human engineer, working under contract for the Vyra Empire. They paid well, but always kept secrets. He wasn't supposed to explore unauthorized sections, but today, curiosity got the better of him. Section X9 had been sealed for decades, marked "Do Not Enter." But the door had glitched open during a routine system reset, and Jack couldn't resist. Inside, it was dark and filled with frost. Metal crates, broken tubes, and strange glowing canisters filled the room, but at the center stood one large cryo chamber, still active, still humming softly. Jack approached slowly, brushing away frost from the glass. What he saw inside made his heart freeze. A woman, or rather, something that looked like one, floated in a thick blue liquid. Her skin was a soft lavender, her hair like threads of silver. Her face was serene, beautiful, and too perfect. Then, he noticed the tag at the bottom of the pod. It read Clone 97. Royal Genome. Jack whispered to himself, "Wait, royal?" He remembered hearing tales of the Vyra Queen, one of the most feared beings in the galaxy. No one dared look at her face directly, let alone touch her. Yet this clone looked exactly like the few images Jack had seen. Was this her copy? Her experiment? Or something more? Suddenly, alarms blared across the ship, and the pod sparked. The cryo system was failing. Jack acted fast, typing into the controls. Overriding security, he forced the chamber to open just in time before the system collapsed completely. The liquid drained, steam hissed, and the body inside collapsed into his arms. Wet and cold, she was breathing barely. Jack laid her down gently and grabbed a heat pack from his gear. Wrapping it around her, he didn't know if she would survive, or if waking her was a terrible mistake. Then, her eyes opened. Glowing violet eyes locked onto his, and she gasped. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice trembling, but soft. Like wind, Jack took a step back, unsure what to say. She sat up slowly, her body weak but graceful. "I was dreaming." "I heard your voice," she added, eyes wide with wonder. "Are you my mate?" Jack blinked. "What?" "No, I just was trying to help." She tilted her head, studying him, then smiled slightly. "You're not like the others," she said. "You touched me with care, not control." She reached out and touched his chest, right where his heart beat under the suit. "I feel something here," she said, eyes softening, warm. Different. Jack's brain raced, trying to understand. She didn't act like a robot or a weapon, she seemed real. "Do you remember your name?" he asked. She paused, thinking, then said, "They called me 97. But that's not a name." "Is it?" He shook his head. "No, it's not." She smiled again. Then, "Can you give me one?" Jack thought for a moment and said, "How about
Vyra?"
The name felt right, and she smiled brightly. "I like that." She said, "I am Vyra." Suddenly, the lights in the room flashed red. A voice came from the overhead system. "Unauthorized life sign detected in X9. Jack cursed. Under his breath, "We have to get out of here." He helped Vyra to her feet. She was weak but light and surprisingly cooperative. They sneaked through service tunnels and finally reached Jack's small engineering quarters. There, Vyra ate. For the first time, clumsily but joyfully, she asked questions. Endless questions about humans. Stars, music, and love. She had never seen the outside world, never tasted food, never been touched gently. She leaned closer to Jack with every hour, her trust growing fast, and Jack. He couldn't deny she stirred something in him too. Late that night, she curled beside him on the emergency cot, whispering, "Thank you for saving me. I think I was born the moment you opened that pod." He didn't know what to say, so he stayed silent. But in his chest, something stirred an emotion too complicated to name. As he drifted to sleep, he didn't notice the strange glow forming. On her skin, and somewhere far away in the heart of the Empire, the real queen woke up in her golden bed. Her heart raced for no reason, and her eyes narrowed. Something was happening, something she hadn't felt in decades. She stood up slowly and whispered, "Who dares touch my reflection?" The next morning, Jack woke up with Vyra curled tightly beside him. Her head rested gently on his chest, and her breath was warm. He felt her hand gripping his shirt as if afraid he would leave. For a moment, he forgot that she was a clone she. Felt too real, too alive. When she opened her eyes, she smiled and whispered, "You didn't run away." Jack gave a nervous chuckle. Didn't plan on it, but inside, he was confused. He had saved her life, but now he didn't know what came next. What did it mean to protect a clone that wasn't supposed to feel anything? Vyra sat up slowly, her body still weak but healing fast. Jack handed her another protein bar, and she nibbled it like a child discovering chocolate. "Your food is strange," she said, "but it fills me with energy." Jack nodded, trying not to stare too long at her glowing violet eyes. She always looked at him with focus, as if he was the only star in her sky over the next few days. Jack kept her hidden in his private supply room. He taught her how to use small tools, how to read human text, and even how to hum music. She learned fast, too fast. Sometimes Jack would catch her staring at him in ways that made his heart pound. And one night, she asked a question that made his hands freeze. "Why do humans love?" She asked softly, "Why do they choose one and not many?" Jack blinked, caught off guard, because when you love someone, they're special. Vyra tilted her head. "Special like how you treat me," swallowed, unsure what to say. "You're different," he said. "You make me feel human again." She touched her belly suddenly, then gasped. Jack's eyes widened. "What's wrong?" Vyra looked confused, almost scared. "I feel..." Something inside Jack brought over a med scanner and ran it across her stomach. The small screen blinked once, twice, then beeped, confirmed. "Early-stage pregnancy detected." Jack's mouth dropped open. "What? That can't be." Vyra blinked fast, looking at him with wide eyes. "Is this normal?" Stepped back, his heart racing. "We didn't even wait, did we?" His cheeks turned a soft purple. "We shared warmth, shared touch. Was that not enough?" Jack sat down, his head spinning. A clone made from the royal genome was now carrying a human child. This wasn't just rare, it was illegal, forbidden, maybe even a galactic crime. Vyra reached for his hand. "Are you angry?" He looked into her glowing eyes and shook his head slowly. "No, just scared." She smiled. "I'm not." Suddenly she grabbed her head and cried out in pain. Her body shook as if something had struck her mind directly. Jack rushed to her side. "Vyra, what's happening?" Through clenched teeth she whispered, "She knows, far across the galaxy, on the shining world of Vyra Prime." The true queen sat in her private chamber. She felt the pulse in her mind, a shockwave of emotions, fear, love, life, and something forbidden. She rose from her throne, eyes glowing with rage. She turned to her advisors. "A clone has broken her bounds." One advisor bowed. "Shall we terminate her link, my queen?" But the queen shook her head. "No, I want to feel what she feels." Back on the ship, Vyra shivered. "She's watching me now." Jack wrapped her in a thermal blanket, holding her close. "Then we need to get out of here," he said. "Right now?" Vyra nodded. Still weak, but determined. "I will protect this life, Jack, no matter what." They made their way through the back corridors of the vessel. Jack contacted an old smuggler friend named Crocs, who owed him a favor, within hours. They were on board a rusty freighter, far from Vyra space, but Vyra's connection to the Queen didn't fade. Every night she woke up gasping, eyes wide. Whispering, "She's getting closer." Jack stared at the stars from the freighter window. Holding Vyra's hand, a million questions circled his mind. But one echoed loudest. What would the Queen do when she found out her clone had not only escaped, but had created life with a human? In the shadows of a golden palace, the real Queen stood before a mirror. Her hand pressed to the glass. "I feel your heartbeat," she whispered. "You carry something I cannot." Then her eyes narrowed with jealousy and hunger. "If your womb accepted him, then perhaps mine will too." Deep inside the royal palace of Vyra Prime, the Queen stood motionless before her starlit window. Her fingers curled tightly around the glass edge of her chalice. her glowing eyes fixed on nothing. Something inside her chest pulsed a feeling. She had long forbidden herself from ever feeling jealousy across the Empire. Thousands of clones had been created in her image. Some served in war, others in science, and a few for diplomacy. But Clone 97 Vyra had been made in secret for emotional study. A vessel to carry what the Queen refused to show: love, affection, desire. Now that very vessel had betrayed her, not by escaping, but by doing something the Queen had never done. She had chosen a mate, a human, and carried his child. That act alone sent shock through the Queen's shared neural link. A burning ache reached her womb, a place she had thought dead and silent. She raised her hand and shattered the chalice against the wall. Guards stepped in, silent, unsure if they were to die just for breathing near her. "Bring me the genetic council," she commanded coldly. Now, meanwhile, aboard the stolen freighter, drifting through no man's space, Jack adjusted the broken heating panel again. Sparks flew, but the room warmed just enough. Vyra sat nearby, wrapped in a patched blanket, her hands resting over her belly. "I think he kicked," she said softly, smiling up at Jack. Jack blinked. "Already? That's fast." Vyra nodded. "He's not ordinary. He feels everything I feel." Jack crouched beside her, placing his hand gently over hers. There was a faint movement, a flutter like butterfly wings. His eyes softened. "That's our child." Vyra leaned her head on his shoulder. "Do you think he'll be safe?" Jack didn't answer immediately. He looked out the freighter window into the endless black stars. "We'll make sure of it," he said finally, "no matter what it takes." Back on Veliar Prime, the Queen stared down at the trembling genetic council. "You told me the clones couldn't carry life," she hissed. "You told me they were sterile." One scientist bowed, sweat rolling down his head. We ensured their wombs were locked biologically." "Then how is 97 with child?" she shouted, her voice shaking the golden chamber walls. Another scientist stammered. "Perhaps the human's DNA triggered ancient Valyari codes. She was never meant to live beyond the lab," said another. "She was just what?" The Queen snarled. "A toy? A mirror? A broken part of me?" No one dared reply. She waved them away with a flick of her fingers, and all scurried out like insects, alone. The Queen stared at the flickering hologram of Clone 97's file. The face looked just like hers except younger, softer, happier. "She's not me," the Queen whispered, "but I want what she has." Later that night, deep in a hidden throne chamber, the Queen did something no ruler of her line had done in centuries. She reached out through the clone neural link and entered Vyra's sleeping mind. At first it was a dream, a peaceful dream of Jack holding Vyra under alien stars. Then the Queen appeared, walking slowly through the memory like a ghost in silk. Vyra jolted awake inside the dream, standing protectively in front of the imagined Jack. "You shouldn't be here," Vyra said, her voice firm. "This is mine," the Queen replied, her eyes sharp and glowing. "You carry what belongs to me." Vyra trembled slightly. "No, he chose me. I chose him." The Queen stepped forward, her presence strong like a crashing wave. "Then I want to feel what you feel," she whispered. "I want him to." Vyra pushed her away, and the dream shattered. She awoke screaming, Jack rushing to her side. "What happened?" he asked, holding her shaking body. "She entered my mind," Vyra whispered. "The Queen? She knows everything now." Jack looked at the console. Red lights blinked across the star map. Tracking beacons were closing in. "She's not just angry," Jack muttered. "She's coming far across the galaxy." The Queen stood before her battle council, wearing ceremonial black armor. Her long silver hair flowed behind her like a banner of war. "Ready the ship," she ordered. "Prepare." "My escort?" "But your Majesty," a general said cautiously, "to chase a clone? Is that necessary?" The Queen's eyes flashed like lightning. "She is no longer just a clone," she said coldly. "She is a mother. And I will not let her birth the future without me." The freighter floated near a dead star.
Ow!
Surrounded by cold silence and broken satellites. Jack had chosen this route because no one used it anymore. Not pirates, not smugglers, not even drones. But silence in space could also be a trap. Vyra stood near the cockpit, rubbing her swollen belly gently. Her eyes half closed as she hummed. A lullaby Jack had taught her. Her skin glowed faintly, as if the child inside her radiated energy. "Jack," she said quietly, "they're close." Jack looked up from the control panel. "You sure?" She nodded, the Queen. "She's watching again." Before Jack could respond, alarms shrieked across the ship. Lights flashed red and the freighter shuddered as something attached to the hull. "No," Jack muttered, pulling out a plasma pistol. "Not now." The side wall exploded inward, tearing metal like paper. Tall, armored figures stepped through the smoke. Their helmets marked with the Vyra royal crest. Jack raised his weapon, but Vyra stepped in front of him. "No violence," she whispered. "They came for me." One of the soldiers raised a glowing staff and pointed it at Vyra's belly. Then, without a word, they vanished in a beam of golden light, taking her and Jack with them. The ship was left drifting, empty and quiet, when Jack opened his eyes. Again, he was lying on a smooth white floor that felt warm to the touch. The air smelled like flowers and thunder. He sat up quickly and looked around. They were inside a massive hall of crystal walls, gold pillars, and hovering lanterns. At the far end, sitting on a tall throne of black marble, was the Queen. She looked exactly like Vyra, but older, taller, colder. Her silver eyes burned with something between curiosity and desire. Vyra stood nearby, unharmed but silent. Jack jumped to his feet. "If you touch her," the Queen raised her hand, and he stopped mid-sentence. "I didn't bring you here to kill you," she said, her voice smooth like melted glass. "I brought you here because I want what she has." Jack blinked, unsure he heard her right. Vyra looked down, biting her lip. The Queen stood and walked down the steps, her long dress trailing behind like a river of smoke. She stopped inches from Jack and stared into his eyes. "You're not powerful," she said slowly. "You're not rich or noble or even beautiful by Vyra standards. But you made my clone bloom," she whispered. "And now, I'd want to bloom too." Jack stepped back, confused. "Waitar, you saying?" The Queen smiled faintly. "I want a child, human." Vyra spoke for the first time, her voice trembling. "He's not a tool." The Queen glanced at her clone. "You think I don't feel what you feel? Every kick of that child echoes in me. I've ruled for centuries." She added, looking back at Jack, "But never once did I feel life grow inside me." "You changed that, human." Jack shook his head. "You want me to? Breeder?" "No," the Queen replied. "I want you to be my choice." Jack stared at both women the same face. Two hearts, one cold and one warm. Vyra stepped forward, her hand trembling as she touched the Queen's arm. "Why now?" she asked. "You had everything." The Queen looked at her, pain flickering in her eyes. "I had control," she said, "but never connection." A moment of silence filled the hall. Then the Queen turned to Jack again. "Prove to me that I too can feel what you gave her, if you can," she said. Stepping back and raising her hands, "I will give you the stars." Guards began to open shimmering doors at the sides of the chamber, leading to rooms filled with soft light and fragrance. "You will stay here tonight," the Queen said, her voice now a mix of command and invitation. "If your touch made a clone feel love," she added. "Let's see what it does to the original." Jack stood frozen, unsure if this was a gift, a test, or a trap. Vyra walked up to him, placing her hand over his heart. "I trust you," she whispered, "but don't lose yourself." As Jack followed the Queen into the side chamber, the walls glowed with golden light. His steps were heavy, his heart torn behind him. Vyra stood with her arms over her belly, whispering softly to the life inside her, "Whatever happens tonight, we will still have each other." But high above the palace, hidden in the stars, another pod stirred. One that had been locked long ago, another clone different. Dangerous opened her eyes. Her mind echoed with all the memories of Vyra and the Queen, and she whispered, "If they both fail him." The room where Jack now stood was unlike anything he had ever seen. It wasn't just royal, it was alive. The walls pulsed with a soft golden light, and the air smelled like something ancient and sweet, Silken sheets covered the bed, and statues of past Velyari queens watched silently from the corners. At the center of it all stood the current queen. No crown, no armor, just herself. Jack stared at her, confused, nervous, heart pounding like a hammer in his chest. She stepped forward, barefoot. "Don't want power tonight," she whispered. "I want to feel what she felt." Jack shook his head slowly. "I don't understand." The queen raised her hand and touched his cheek gently. Her fingers cold at first, but warming quickly. "You made Vyra feel alive," she said. "I want to know what that means." In another chamber nearby, Vyra sat quietly, her hands wrapped around her belly. She could feel everything through the connection they shared, not just thoughts, but emotions, confusion, sadness, desire, fear. Her child stirred inside her. As if reacting to the storm outside her heart, back in the queen's chamber, Jack stepped away and asked, "Why now? Why me?" The queen's expression changed just for a second. It showed something human. "I have ruled for 400 years, she said, "but I've never been touched without fear, till your child touched me through her," she added, "and now I can't stop feeling." She walked over to a glowing table and placed her hand on a scanner. A new door opened, revealing a ritual chamber. Circular and silent. "This is our tradition," she said, "the rite of blooming. If I enter it with you, I give up control." Jack stared at her in disbelief. "You would give up control for me?" "Only if you step in willingly," she said, her eyes now soft like Vyra's. "I want to be chosen, not obeyed." Vyra stood at the entrance to the room now, watching quietly. The queen looked at her, and their eyes locked. "You hated me for centuries," Vyra said calmly. "You called me a broken mirror, and yet here we are," the queen replied. Begging the same man for warmth, Jack looked between them, two identical faces. Two opposite souls, one raised to love, the other raised to rule, and both wanted him, not as a weapon, not as a servant, but as a partner. "I don't know what to do. Yeah, but I care for both of you." Differently, the queen walked forward and placed her forehead against his. "Then don't choose tonight," she whispered. "Just feel at that moment." The room dimmed. The air vibrated with ancient Velyari song. The ritual had begun. But even as he stepped into the sacred circle with her, his heart trembled, because love, once simple, did now split in two directions, outside. Vyra held her belly tighter and whispered to her child, "He will come back to us, little star." No matter what happens in that room, hours passed. Or maybe minutes' time meant nothing in the queen's chamber. She cried, laughed, touched, and trembled for the first time in her immortal life. Jack gave not power, but presence. And when it ended, the queen collapsed into his arms, gasping, "So this is what it feels like to be wanted." She whispered, not feared, but the peace didn't last. A sudden voice echoed through the palace speakers. Sharp and strange attention, all units. "Subject 0 has escaped containment." Vyra stood up, panic on her face. "No," she whispered. "Not her." The queen turned pale. She was the first attempt. She wasn't stable. Jack rushed to Vyra, grabbing her hand. "Who is?" "Subject 0? Vyra looked him in the eye. "She's like me, like her." "But she was made without emotion," Vyra said softly, "just pure instinct. And she wants you too, somewhere in the far towers of the palace." Another woman, identical in face but wild in eyes, ripped off the chains from her arms. Her skin was darker, her movements sharper. She whispered Jack's name with a grin. "No queen, no clone. No one will have him but me." Back in the sacred room, Jack stood between two trembling queens, one who had given him her trust, and one who had given him her soul. And now, a third was coming, one with no heart at all. Asterisk sirens echoed across the palace, glowing red symbols flashing in every corridor. Jack gripped Vyra's hand tightly as they ran down a hallway lit by pulsing lights. Behind them, the queen followed. In silence, her expression unreadable but tense. It wasn't just fear in her eyes, it was guilt. Subject 0 had awakened, and the palace was no longer safe. "Where is she kept?" Jack asked breathlessly. Vyra replied, "She was locked in the deep vaults." Below even the prison level, the queen added softly, she was never meant to wake up, never meant to exist again. Jack stopped suddenly and turned toward both. Of them, I need the truth, he said. No more secrets. Vyra looked down. But the queen met his gaze. There weren't supposed to be clones, she said. I made them out of fear. Fear of losing myself, she added. Of feeling. Of being weak, she continued as they walked again, voice steady and cold. Subject 0 was the first. The queen said, she was meant to hold my instincts, my primal power, but she didn't follow orders. She fought back, Vyra whispered. She was pure hunger. Love without kindness, strength without control as they reached the central chamber. The palace shook, glass panels cracked, and guards flew past, tossed like leaves by invisible force. Then they heard her voice low, mocking and smooth, like silk soaked in fire. Hello, sisters, Subject 0 purred, stepping from the shadows. She looked like them, same silver hair, same glowing eyes, but her movements were sharper. Her lips curled into a grin that sent chills down Jack's spine. She didn't walk, she prowled. Jack stepped in front of Vyra, but Zero's eyes locked on him. So this is the one, she said, the reason you both betrayed what we were made for. The queen raised her hand, glowing with psychic power. You're broken, she said coldly. You were never whole. Zero laughed, the sound sharp, like broken crystal. I'm not broken, she said. I'm the part you all deny. She took a step forward, her voice now quieter, darker. You buried me because I wanted too much, she said, because I didn't want to be a puppet. She turned her gaze to Jack, her voice shifting to something almost seductive. But you could survive me, she whispered. You could awaken the real queen in me. Jack backed away. You're not like them. No, she smiled. I'm better. Vyra stepped forward, standing between Jack and Zero. No, you're emptiness, she said firmly. You only feel the fire, never the warmth. You carry rage, the queen added, stepping beside Vyra, but no balance. For a long moment, all three women stared at each other's same face. Three different souls. Jack looked between them, heart pounding. This wasn't just a fight over him. This was a battle of identity. Three reflections of one being, finally facing the truth. Zero's smile faded slowly, replaced by something colder. You had your chance, she said. Now it's mine. She raised her hand, and a pulse of dark energy flew forward. Jack grabbed Vyra and rolled aside as the marble floor cracked open where they had stood. The queen struck back with a beam of golden light, slamming Zero into the wall. Sparks flew, glass shattered, and the air burned. Jack held Vyra close, shielding her belly. The queen stood over Zero, panting, but Zero only laughed again. You'll never kill me. Because I am you. The queen looked down, eyes full of old pain. No, she said, you were me. But I've changed. She turned to Vyra, then to Jack. Because of him. She said softly, because of love. Zero's power flickered, fading fast. She looked up one last time, eyes no longer mocking. Then, what am I now? She whispered. Vyra knelt beside her, took her hand and said, maybe. Just lost. Zero closed her eyes, and her body faded into light. No scream, no hate, just silence. The palace lights returned to calm gold, and the alarm faded. It was over. Jack looked at both women, sweat on his brow, heart full of questions. But one thing was clear. Zero had been more than a threat. She had been a warning. Part of the queen they all carried. A part that had to be faced before love could bloom. Vyra placed Jack's hand on her belly again, the baby kicking softly. The queen touched it too, for the first time, without jealousy. And for the first time, all three hearts beat in peace. The sky above Velure Prime glowed soft orange as morning arrived. But this sunrise felt different, for the first time in centuries. The palace halls echoed with quiet, not commands. The storm of conflict had passed, and what remained was something the Empire had never known. Hope. Vyra sat in a quiet chamber, her hand resting over her round belly. Jack sat beside her, fingers laced through hers. They had survived Subject Zero, the Queen's awakening, and the impossible union of two worlds now. A new life was about to enter the galaxy, one born not from command, but choice. The Queen stood nearby, dressed in simple silk, no crown, no armor. Her face held no makeup, no mask, only quiet wonder. She had spent the night watching Vyra sleep, watching Jack breathe, and somewhere between silence and heartbeat, something inside her had shifted. There was a knock, and a healer entered.
Bowing low, it's time.
She said, "The child comes." Jack's hands trembled, but Vyra smiled softly. "I'm not afraid," she whispered, "because he's—" Hours are passed in tense silence. Jack paced the floor. The Queen never moved from her place near the bed. Vyra's breaths grew heavier, her voice low as she pushed through pain. The child came quickly but without chaos. When the baby's first cry filled the room, the palace itself seemed to pause. The healer wrapped the newborn in a soft silver cloth and handed him to Vyra. She held him close, tears running down her cheeks. Jack knelt beside her, staring in. The baby had soft lavender skin like his mother, but dark human eyes like his father, and something else, his presence felt. Calming, powerful, ancient, and new at the same time. The Queen stepped closer, staring at the child. Her fingers trembled as she reached out and touched his small hand. He gripped her finger tightly, and a single tear rolled down her cheek. "He's perfect," she whispered, "and he's more than us all." Jack looked at her, still cautious. "What will happen now?" he asked. "Will your people accept him?" The Queen turned toward the window, watching the sunlight spread across her empire. "They will have to," she said, "because he's the future." Word spread fast. The Vyra people gathered in massive crowds outside the palace. Some feared what the Queen had done. Others were simply curious. But when she stepped out with Vyra and Jack holding the child in her arms, no one moved. No one spoke. "This child," she announced, "is the son of two worlds. He is proof that we can be more than conquerors," she continued, "more than machines of pride. He is the first of a new path." She said, "And I, your Queen, accept him." A silence followed, thick, heavy, uncertain. Then a single voice cried out, "Long live the heir!" Another followed, and then hundreds more. The crowd began to chant. Not just for the child, but for the hope he carried. Later that night, as stars lit the sky, Jack stood on a quiet balcony holding his son. Vyra leaned against him, sleepy but smiling. The Queen joined them, carrying a small wooden box. Inside it was a crown knot, made of gold or crystal, but carved from stone and vine. "For him," she said, "when he's ready." Jack looked at her, truly looked, and saw not a queen, not a copy of Vyra, but a woman who had shed her chains, just like Vyra had once done. "He has three parents," Jack said softly, "but one future." The Queen nodded, "And it will be brighter than all our pasts." In a far-off chamber, sealed and forgotten, a single light flickered. Another clone one left untouched opened her eyes. She had no orders, no name, no role. But she had heard the child's cry from across the network, and she whispered, "I want to see him, but that's a story for another day." For now, the human, the clone, and the Queen stood beneath the stars. Together, they watched their son, this small, soft, glowing child, sleep in peace. And for the first time in the galaxy's long and violent history, peace felt real.